It's reality. Non-duality is reality. That's the point, you know? The point is, with all these practices and teachings, it's very important to let it sink in that this is not a change operation. This is not a self-improvement project. We're not trying to get from where you are to somewhere else. No. This work and these practices are about establishing a view. This work and these practices are not about changing anything. They're about experiencing the truth. Right? And so it's not about changing anything, but it's about seeing things as they are, seeing an illusion as an illusion, seeing a thought as a thought, you know, seeing the idea of being a person as an idea of being a person, which is all there is the idea of being a person. To see that is liberating, because prior to seeing that, you were living the life within the limitations of that. To see that is enlightening. To see that opens up a whole new world of possibility, because prior to seeing that, you were living within the limitations of that. You were living within the limitations of identifying yourself as the thinker of your thoughts. You were living within the limitations of identifying yourself as a physical body. You were living within the limitations of identifying yourself as living in time, right? These are all of the conditioning pieces, you know, that come together to produce the illusion of reality. You know, these are all the pieces that come together to produce the illusion of reality, the appearance. But the thing is that the appearance is an appearance. When you are in the misconception, being a person who thinks you're aware, the appearance is not an appearance. The appearance is real. The appearance is reality. The appearance appears to be factual. You know, it appears to be, for the ordinary person, it appears to be the case that they are what they were told they are. You know, so the setup is such that reality reflects what you say it is. The setup is that reality reflects what you say it is, right? So you're told you're your body. So you live your life as a body. You're told you're your personality, and we give a name to that personality, and we tell you certain things about yourself so you can start the project, right? And then after that, you know, you mess it up. But you're given this identification with yourself as a physical body and a personality, and life goes on from there. You're living your life from there, and you're living your life in time, and you're living your life in a lifetime, which means you're going to die, right? That's the setup for life. And it's within that world that people are attempting to experience well-being and happiness and contentment and satisfaction. Obviously, you don't need me to see that that doesn't work. All you have to do, as I often say, is watch the 6:30 news. The evidence is pretty clear. If people knew who they were, and if people knew what reality actually was, right, we'd all have to be evil, right? If people knew who they were and people knew what reality really was and we were still behaving like this, the only explanation is that we're evil. And a lot of people do consider that to be an explanation for human behavior. There's evil in the world, you know, evil people, evil deeds, and so forth. What you see on the 6 o'clock news is called evil. Okay. I'm not saying that it is evil. I'm saying we call that evil, okay? Because the person needs to explain everything and justify everything, especially when they're going to kill somebody, right? So we'll have them be evil, then we'll kill them. It'll be a good deed, right? And if you're in Vietnam, you know, doing that, that's a hero. You come back here, you're a murderer. You know, so what's going on here with this moral code that we have, right? No, what I'm saying is what we call evil is when the person is 100% identified with themselves as a separate self, as a physical body, as a separate self, right? Within that reality, there are certain ways of living and moving and behaving that make sense. Right? If it's a you or me world and there's only enough for one of us, right? Well, then, you know, it's going to come to that, right? So in a world in which you're separate from the rest of the world and separate from other people, it will end you up behaving in ways that people could call evil. It'll end you up behaving in ways that are selfish. It'll end you up behaving in ways to justify your behavior when you're behaving in ways that are destructive and hurtful to yourself and other people. All of that's justified. Watch the news. We're not just going to war. No, we have to. It's the right thing to do. After all, in God we trust. After all, God's on our side. So we're just keeping the evil away, right? That's what we're doing. It's an interesting situation because, it's natural for people to be egocentric, right? But how often do you stop when we're looking at global events in politics? How often do you stop to look at our own history and how many countries we've invaded? After all, don't forget, we're the first, we're high and mighty, and yet we're the first country to drop the atom bomb, right? The most destructive weapon in the history of humanity, we dropped it, right? And killed millions of people. And now we're going to take the high road, right? So, and I'm not saying this to say there's anything wrong with the United States or Russia or Syria or anybody else. We're all in the same mess. We're all in the same mess. If we could all wake up and see things as they are, this would be seen for what it is, which is absurdity. It's absurdity. When you wake up and you look at what human beings are doing, it's absurd. It looks absurd. It's absurd, to kill each other. I mean, just stop and look at this, as objectively as you can. To kill another person because they see things or think about things differently than you, or look different than you, or live somewhere other than where you live, that's absurd. It's obviously absurd, right? And yet when you listen to the propaganda, which is often presented by somebody that has an adolescent mental state, this is a telltale thing. If you listen to politicians that are trying to ramp the public up to be ready to do war, right? They start talking like a teenager. We'll get them. They won't get away with this. We'll chase them down. There'll be no place to hide on the whole planet. This is a teenager. And these are our leaders, right? So you better take this spiritual stuff very seriously. Very seriously, Because if you're going to succeed in getting out of this nightmare, right, that is typically considered reality, if you're going to succeed in getting out of this nightmare, you're going to have to be able to start to see this movie as a movie. That's the only way out. That's the only way out. Look at it this way. Suppose, just fantasize with me, suppose you're an actor and you're playing you. You're an actor and you're playing you, and the movie is your life, and the script is what you do, and the other script is what other people do, and they're supporting actors and actresses. And Hollywood's got a tremendous amount of money. They could build what we have here as a movie set with no problem, right? So you could say your whole life, your house, everywhere you go is a movie set. Everybody other than you are supporting actors. You're the star of the movie, and the movie's a drama, right? Now, and you're being you, and you're acting the role, and you're playing the script, right? Now, would you have any fun? Now remember, you're an actor, and it's a movie, right? And you're given a script, right? And you follow the script, right? Would you have any fun?
More so than we are now.
Exactly.
I said more so than we are now.
That's right. The thing is this, if you succeed at what I'm suggesting, what you will get paid is happiness. If what you will get paid is peace of mind, right? Because there's a number of different ways of looking at what I just got done saying. If you were an actor playing you in a movie, right, would you really be being you? Would the situations you'd be in be real situations? So why wouldn't you be able to have a good time? Do you understand? And that is exactly the way it is if you get free from your involvement with identifying with things that you're not, and your involvement with identifying what's happening in a way that is a misunderstanding about it. Yeah. Well, the thing is this, there is no person that is objective, has an objective existence like an actual person. right? If I say to you, show me your person, show me your personality, you can't, because it doesn't exist anywhere other than your brain. That's what I mean that there's no person. Now, having said that, and I'm glad you brought this up, having said that, right, there is a person. But you've been stuck as a person. So the first thing we have to do is tell you that there isn't a person to get you used to what it's like not to be a person. Then we can bring you back and say, and there is a person, right? There has to be a person. How can you be in the movie without having a role to play? How can you be in the movie without having a script to play, right? So there has to be a person, right?
Circle, what do you call that with the brush stroke?
The enso.
The enso.
Exactly. If you complete the process, you come back to where you started, right? Nothing's changed. There's still a person, right? But now you know you're not that, you're just being that. A human, you're being human. You know you're not human, you're being human. That means you're not of this, you're not, you're in this world but not of this world, So you're being human, right? And that gives you the experience of freedom. That gives you the experience of it's not heavy. That's what Paul Hederman is trying to get across to people. You can have the experience of lightening up when you realize there's no reason to be heavy. If you go through this whole spiritual process, right, where you go from complete ignorance, right, through the process of developing deep understandings and practicing the practices necessary, to train you to disidentify with the thought process and all, so forth. So if you go through that whole process, right, where you end up is, right, back in the ego, back in the body, right, but now given the trip you just ended going on, your goal now is to relax. Your goal now is to relax because you realize nothing has to change. You were never your body. You were never the person. And the movie will go on anyway, right? But now the goal is to relax. To relax because there's nothing that you have to worry about. That's why there are high forms of Buddhist practices and teachings like Sogen, right? In which they say the goal of the teaching and the practices, right, is to establish a view, right? And what they mean by that is to see things as they are, establish a view, right? And then train yourself to relax. Their practices are all about relaxation. And even in the approach that we take towards meditation, I hope you are aware of the fact that part of the practice is to be out of your mind so the mind can calm down. Leave for a while because your interaction keeps generating more craziness. So leave for a while and just be aware of the body breathing. And while you're away, the mind will calm down because you're not stirring it up anymore, right? It'll calm down on its own. That's very important part of the practice, to relax the physical body, to relax in terms of letting go of the stress, right? And in order to live your life that way, you have to maintain the view. You have to maintain the view. You have to get up in the morning and change the channel. You have to wake up because you're going to wake up into the person, aren't you? Yeah, you're going to wake up into the person. You know that, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you watch the person wake up, right? That'll be the voice in your head that says something like, oh shit, right? You watch the person wake up in whatever way it does, right? And then you change the channel. You change the channel to the awareness channel. Right? Then when you change the channel to the awareness channel, the person's still there doing what the person's doing, right? But you're not the person now, you're the awareness of the person. That's what the diagram says. You're not the person now, the awareness of the person, right? So you can watch it. You can be a witness and you can watch the thoughts, the feelings, the movements, the whole 9 yards. You can watch it, right? And when you're watching it, it's easier to live. When you're watching it, you lighten up because you're not identified with the drama and the person as you anymore. It's what's happening in your awareness instead of you being that thing. And you can't get to that experience until you have a deep enough understanding of what we're talking about and you do the practices to start to disengage, from your constant participation in mental activity. Disengage from your constant participation and mental activity. And the way you do that is to Be aware of what's happening instead of being part of what's happening. Be aware of what's happening instead of being part of what's happening. Now, at the same time that's the case, right, you have to also be part of what's happening, right? This is what I was talking about earlier when I said the awareness is moving and never moves. Because the awareness is the unmanifest energy potential and the manifest energy potential. So it never moves and it moves at the same time, right? But when you're on the manifested end of things, right, then your orientation, right, is in the part that's moving all the time. Right? That's your orientation because you're in the world, you're in time, right? It's moving all the time, right? And the way you get to see who you are is to recognize that which doesn't move. The way you get to see who you are is to recognize that which doesn't age, right? For example, if you look at your awareness right now, it's a very easy thing to do because the evidence speaks for the truth all the time. The evidence always speaks for the truth. And so if you look right now at your awareness, you can see how old is it? Yeah, this is what I mean by the evidence. How old is it? Have a direct perception of the truth. How old is the awareness? You know, how old is it?
Eternally old.
Or has no age, same thing. Or has no age. You can say eternally old or has no age, same thing, right? What form does it have? What form is it in, you know? This is why I think the things like the invitation that Mooji came up with can be very powerful. Because what he does is he walks you through a process in which you strip away all the things you identify with until there's nothing left, right? And when there's nothing left, he says, that's you. One of the things he says at the end of the invitation is, how far away from you is the awareness? If you look at that yourself right now, anytime you want, the evidence never changes. How far away from you is the awareness? If you actually look, there's only one answer. There's no distance. So it must be true that that's you. It must be true that that's you. Now I know that even though the evidence says it's you, you'll still go on thinking it's not. That's what makes life interesting. See, but when you go to work during the day, your attention gets taken by doing your job, and you go into your roles, and you forget all this stuff, right? But what I want you to know is who you are never forgets all this stuff. All you have to do is get that and realize that while you're busy being in the role you're in, you're still the awareness. You're still the awareness. So all you have to do is stop thinking that you're not.
All the annoying people that wouldn't annoy me.
Well, that's the application.
10% left.
That's the application of knowing who you are. The application of knowing who you are is finding out that everybody is who you are, right? The application of knowing who you are is to find out that the saying, treat others as you would like them to treat you, is a fact. It's not a theory. It's not a good idea. It's a fact. That's why they say when they ask certain enlightened teachers, well, but how do you deal with other people? And they say, there's no other people. There is no others. There are no others. If you get that on an experiential level, right, your difficulty in relationships will come to an end. It has to. Has to. You know, now there may be a process, right? And during that process, you may have to make mistakes, right? But that's not a problem. You know, you have an aim, you have a goal, you're going somewhere. You know what I mean? You're headed to freedom. You're headed to freedom.
You want to others.
That's right. That's right. So you begin to see these things, you begin to understand these things conceptually, and you begin to practice these things. And when you practice these things, you start getting direct, right? You start getting direct seeing of what it is that's being pointed out. That's a very important thing. Don't let yourself stay in belief. Don't let yourself stay in understanding the concepts that I'm talking about and thinking that that's enough. It's not enough. That will not get you in. Understanding is a booby prize when it comes to experiencing the truth. You have to go beyond that and actually see it directly for yourself. And when you see it directly for yourself, there's no longer any need for you to have any questions. You can answer your own questions when you see reality directly for yourself. You can answer your own questions.
Yeah, this trying to figure it out, make sense of it, hasn't been working.
What's that?
I said this trying to figure it out or to make sense of it hasn't been working.
Yeah, so how long are you going to do it? Right? If you're doing something that doesn't work, I mean, you've all heard that definition of insanity.
Yes, I was thinking.
But if you apply that definition to humanity, everybody's crazy because everybody keeps repeating the same patterns, don't they? We're still killing each other like it's, like it's not like there's nothing wrong with that. We're still killing each other like there's nothing wrong with that. And there are a lot of people that are so caught up in the paranoia that exists when you think of yourself as a separate person, right? That you're totally justified in murder. Ready to do it, totally justified in murder. Let's get to it. We got to get rid of some people, right? That's what happened in Germany. That's what's beginning to happen here. So this, as one of my friends said, many years ago, I worked in a Jewish delicatessen. You learn a lot there. And my boss, yeah, and my boss used to say to me all the time, "This is a sick world we're living in here." All right, I think we had enough for one session. Have a good night.